Hello and welcome. Today's video will be covering how to take a bid from the EDGE Estimator and activate it as a project to be tracked in EDGE On-Site. This will all be done in the administration portal, which can be accessed two ways. First, in your internet browser, you can type in admin.edgeestimator.com, as shown here. You can also get there directly from the EDGE Estimator by using this gear icon here, which as you see by the text box, will take you right to the administration portal. So once we get to the portal, the first thing we'd like to do is just log in. And upon login, we will be taken immediately to our bids manager screen, which is exactly where we want to be for today's video. So the first thing we want to do is locate the bid in which we would like to activate for EDGE On-Site. So for today's video, I'm going to use this Walgreens EOS job. You may be able to search the job name up or look in one of these tabs to easily identify the bid you're looking for. But once we find it, we just want to hover our mouse over the name of the bid and click the hyperlink. Now we're going to see a list of all the scenarios inside this bid. A very important thing to note here is that you do not activate an entire bid as an EDGE On-Site project. Rather, you actually are activating individual scenarios. This is important because you may have some parts of the job that you want to track, but they might be located in a separate scenario. And so you may have some consolidating to do to create one scenario that houses all the parts of the job that you'd like to track. And then you can activate that whole scenario for EDGE On-Site. Often, we recommend copying and inserting your estimate and creating a field copy so that you have a base bid that you can always reference, and then you have a field copy that can be altered and used for tracking production. You can see here, I have my other scenario called base bid, and then I have scenario 1, which is going to be what I'm using as my EDGE On-Site field copy. So if you look to the right, for each of these scenarios, you see an Activate for EDGE On-Site button. So I could technically activate both of these scenarios, and they would both be separate projects in EDGE On-Site. So let's just stick with this top one, scenario 1, and let's go ahead and activate it. This Activate for EDGE On-Site button becomes available once EDGE On-Site is turned on for your company. So we're going to hover our mouse over the hyperlink and give it a click. And right now we're seeing an error message that tells us, in order to activate this scenario, the scenario must be checked in. This touches on one of two main criteria that must be met in order to activate a scenario for EDGE On-Site. So let's start with this first one, and we'll go ahead and go to our EDGE Estimator and check in this scenario. Here I am in the EDGE Estimator, and here I see scenario 1. Let's go ahead and give that a check-in. And once this is checked in, we can navigate back to our administration portal and try to activate that scenario once more. So now that this is finished up, we can go back to our administration portal, give this a quick refresh, and now let's go ahead and try to activate again. And now we're seeing a different error message that reads, in order to activate this scenario, you must have no errors. And here is the second major piece of criteria that must be met in order to get this scenario activated for EDGE On-Site. It must be a green status indicator like shown in the base bid scenario here. There cannot be any errors inside this scenario. So let's go back to our EDGE Estimator once more and take a look at what's wrong. So let's give this a check out. And we see by the red status indicator that tells us that we have errors inside this project, whether it be something that needs pricing, labor that needs a production rate, or a condition that needs to be measured. And so now that our scenario is finishing its checkout, let's take a look at our pricing screen. And it looks like we found the culprit. Here we can see that our ISO needs a unit price. So let's go ahead and give it one. And now we can see that it looks like we've resolved all the errors for this project. So based on the first error message we got, we know that even though we have it error-free, we still need to check it back in order for it to be accessible for EDGE On-Site. And so that's exactly what we're going to do. And now we will be able to activate this scenario. Here we go. And so now that this is finished, we're going to navigate back to our administration portal and give it another refresh. And now we can see that green indicator. And so we can hit our Activate for Edge on Site button. It's going to say, are you sure? And it'll give you a disclaimer that activating this scenario will create a project which could incur billing for your company. As long as that's understood, to move forward, you just would click yes. And now we're going to get a window that shows that it's processing. Now, the length of this processing will depend on the size of the scenario that you're activating. As you can see here, this one was relatively small, so it activated quite quickly. And it automatically will bring you to your EOS Projects Manager screen, which lists all the projects that you have activated for your company. And it pops up automatically a window to configure your project information. So let's take a look at what it wants. First, it wants us to give a project a name. So we'll call it the same thing we called it in the estimate. Next, we have a reference number field. So this often is used to house a bid number or some sort of number that can trace back to accounting. So we'll just give it a base example here, something of the sort. We also have a start date field for the start date of the job and an end date field for when the job is estimated to be completed. We can select a job type and make sure that our time zone is correct. And then it requires us to put in an address. All of these fields are required except for address 2. And now that we have everything entered, we can go ahead and click Save. And if we look at the top of our Projects Manager list, we see Walgreens EOS, which is the project that we just activated. So that's how you activate an EDGE Estimator scenario as a project in EDGE on site. Now that it's activated, you'll also be able to log into the iPad, and this project will be available for download and tracking. Please see our other videos in order to get comfortable with that functionality. Lastly, I would like to note that there may be other error messages you encounter when trying to activate your scenario for EDGE on site, even if it's error-free and checked in. Today, this video just covered the two most basic errors that you might come across, but we do have other videos in the knowledge base that cover any and every error that you could possibly encounter when trying to activate a scenario. Please reference those videos or give us a call if they're not helpful. Thank you very much for watching.